It's all fun and games coming down on David's head that he doesn't do enough in the pre-roll banter. He doesn't come up with enough
funny stuff.
He's funny in the pre-roll, and then we'll get to the serious stuff. Now that's been taken away from me too. I've been disarmed. I'm completely without arms. I'm an armless person. I'm just legs walking around.
Did I pick a not funny one today?
With a torso attached. No, why don't you tell us? Let's see how many yucks we get out of this goddamn subject.
Okay. David,
haven't said an F word yet. I said...
David, you know what really grinds my gears?
What grinding your gears? I don't know if that's trademarked, but let's keep going with it.
The mileage tax.
Oh, why would that grind your gears at all, Dane? Please.
It's just like... It's totally not fair, man.
How's it not fair? It's going to tax the people that drive on the roads the most, which are clearly the rich because they drive the most, which is why they should be taxed the most. Heaven forbid we just apply a flat tax that taxes them just is equal onto their income that everybody else has. No. That's too simple. Let's tax the people that drive on the roads the most because that makes sense.
Wait, David, you mean to tell me that it's taxing the same people who were hurt the most by COVID? I mean, come on, let's be honest. We know that the super wealthy hedge fund manager and lawyer and businessman,
you know what,
couldn't sit home during COVID and just chill.
They jogged into their very luxurious office.
They jogged into a greener future.
Right. They jogged because they care about not only our health and well-being, but the health of the planet. That's how much they care.
I think this de facto makes them better than us.
And they're clearly better than us. Look how much better they look than us. They can afford moisturizers and conditioners. I'm sitting here rubbing my Pert Plus all over my body to clean it, you know?
Well, being the super...
altruistic,
glass half full, nice guy kind of guy I am.
Right.
I'm looking at it like, I mean, yes, your point is well taken.
You think, I'm going to go ahead and read your mind because I got ESPN and top 10, not top 10. You're going to say that, I don't know what you're going to say because my ESPN failed me. I didn't buy the plus.
Yeah. You should have.
Go for it.
Let's call a spade a spade. This is another step to see how far they can take their grandiose climate agenda.
You mean
if they want to say we can go all the way down to cutting your freedom off at the knees because we're going to punish any sort of movement outside of your home that we haven't pre-authorized.
Wait, hold on.
Or that you're not riding in an electronic
but don't they run on the simple fact that they're fighting for the rights of the little person so that the minority doesn't get more downtrodden than they already are? So doesn't this tax really hurt the same people that voted for them in the first place? Dane?
Would appear so.
I mean, that they've never come up with a policy that's boomeranged them back in the face ever. It's so crazy.
Well, you started off good, David. You started off with yucks, and then we just made it too sad, and we're not even out of the pre-roll.
The wile coyotes of politics. These sons of bitches.
And
wait, is he canceled? Is he canceled yet? Think of my boy Pepe. Anyway.
Well, listen, I don't know about you. I don't have any more. My gears are completely ground down. I'm gearless.
You're just circles.
They're so ground. I'm
They're just spinning circles.
Exactly.
You got no teeth.
Exactly.
So you need dangers.
Can we spin my circles into the episode?
I don't have a problem with that.
All right, let's jump in.
There's got to be a tax, though.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Weapons of Moon
Germs of all ages.
Episode 37 can be found at wmdpodcast.com/37. any podcast catcher you have, YouTube, come over to the website, jump on the email list. We have an announcement. I'm going to let David save it for the end. But about the website, so definitely stay tuned till the end of the episode.
Definitely write that down.
But David went too long in pre-roll, so we got to jump in, get to the topics, because we're throwing another one, an extra one at you this week, ladies and gentlemen.
Extra? We're throwing 2 extra at it.
No. We usually do.
Oh, okay.
It's 4 total. Okay, just
4 total.
Relax. Okay, just let me handle the math, which is a scary, scary thing coming from me.
You are an engineer, after all.
So. Here's our 3 segments, and then we're just going to jump back into the first one. Segment 1, the Biden infrastructure plan. I mean, if the government can't figure out how to spend $3 trillion, I don't think anybody can.
I've got a good idea. Blowing hookers. Let's go.
DC will spend that on a light
might actually
Tuesday.
be more productive. You can come up with some good ideas during those sessions.
Topic 2 will be a discussion of the Georgia voter ID laws. Things have happened, and we have things to say. and
That's general.
We're saving the cheeriest of topics for last. The vaccine passport. I mean, did you think
you didn't see it coming? I bet you didn't see it coming.
Did you think we could let you out of the first week of April without talking about 1984 creeping closer and closer by the day?
We're recording this a day after April Fool's Day, and I was waiting for them to say, "All right, guys. We got you.
JK.
We got you. Corona didn't exist. We just made it up to win the election."
Merds. We're just wixing them up.
Right. Anywho, first topic.
So,
let's go.
Topic 1, the Biden infrastructure plan. Some estimates say $2.5 trillion. Some estimates say 3. I mean,
that's a huge fucking difference.
What's a half a trillion between friends?
I've got an arm up. 500 million. Do you know how? Wait, did I do my math wrong?
No, yeah, you did. You got it. It's 500 billion. It would be half a trillion.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's even worse.
That's like 3
That's like
quarters.
3 extra zeros.
That's like 3/4 of an Iraq war.
Holy fuck. First one.
David.
Yes.
Stifle yourself.
I'll stifle myself.
So this plan is supposed to, it's very, very wide sweeping, all encompassing. Wants to transition all government vehicles over to electric, wants to expand the
flying cars,
the rail system,
flying cars.
Make sure that Amtrak, which is just generating millions for the government by the year. We're going to expand that operation.
Back to the Future 2, Back to the Present. Told me.
I've said too much. They know what the plan's about.
That it was going to be flying cars and hoverboards. They sold us hoverboards in 2018. That was bullshit.
Bro, they sold us.
There were 2 goddamn wheels on the ground. That wasn't hover at all.
They sold us self-lacing Nikes in like the mid-'80s. When did Back to the Future come out?
They're coming out with those now, but it's not self-lacing. You slide it in and it clips in.
What I'm saying is you don't have to apply any effort to get them to clip. You don't have to Velcro and you don't have to tie.
All I'm saying.
Or any other way of fastening shoes.
All I'm saying. We were sold a bill of goods. And I thought Joe Biden would finally say, you know what? We're Americans, and damn it, we deserve flying cars, even though Ethel shouldn't even have a driver's license.
Yeah, listen, I'm upset that my George Jetson's vehicle doesn't fold up into a briefcase that I just carry inside.
Yeah, what the French toast?
I really thought.
When was that based? I think it was 2010. The Jetsons?
Oh, I don't know.
Keep talking.
Let's not confuse things. Okay, so about this whole Biden infrastructure plan, everybody's like, oh, this is going to be an investment in America. I see, the lefty memes. Obviously, everything Biden does is sacrosanct. And so, ha, 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 Trump said, make America great again, and all he wore was a red hat. But Biden is spending $3 trillion on infrastructure.
I stand corrected.
Yes, David?
It was based in 2062.
Okay, so 5 decades off. What? No,
jeez,
4 decades.
Well,
again, leave me to the math.
Yeah, we can trust the handy calculator that is your brain. Anywho, I'm sorry. Continue.
And even if we grant everything he's going to do is great in pursuance of fixing the climate and righting historical inequalities and everything that his infrastructure plan is going to do. We're going to grant the whole thing. And it still doesn't pass the laugh test because of Frederick Bastiat's analogy of the seen versus the unseen. When the government spends let's just put it in one bridge. If the government spends $3 trillion on a bridge, everybody's going to go, hey, look, we got a new bridge. We didn't have that before. Our life is better. Well, what is unseen, so that's the seen part of the analogy. What the unseen is, government doesn't have any money. So the money that it spent on the bridge, it first had to extract from the private economy.
And
it had to take it out of our pocketbooks. It had to take it out of the pocketbooks of Elon Musk's and other entrepreneurs that would invent things.
Dane, was it taking it out of our current pocketbooks? Was it taking it out of our current pocketbooks, or is it taking it out of our future pocketbooks?
Both.
Okay.
Both, because they're going to raise taxes for it in terms of they're going to.
And what's that dollar going to be worth the next day?
Yeah,
less than it is today. Ah, shit. So not only are they robbing us today, but they're making us pay more tomorrow.
Yeah.
Gee, goddamn! Why don't we do this more often?
We're getting fiscally DP'd by our government.
Don't look that up online. You're gonna find some gross outcomes.
It's like
18 plus registered.
It's bananas. But again, you have to assume that $3 trillion was spent more efficiently, more effectively, and for a better thing. You have to genuinely believe that bridge that you can see is more valuable than, again, let me just use an Elon Musk. I know, he's very polarizing, but the point is, like, he's a smart guy who made one of the first successful electric vehicle companies to compete with fossil fuel producing companies like Ford and GM traditionally, right? And him being in the market is changing the way people think about cars, I would say, for a lefty, for the better, right?
By the way,
Teslas are greener than, what we had before.
They told him it would never work, number one, when he first started out here. And then also to tack back onto that, you'd have to believe that the government has always been correct and has always done things appropriately and in the best interest of the population that elected them. Correct?
Yeah. And they never have wasted a resource
Never.
Ever.
They've never gone to a war to pay off a corporation that may or may not have ties to the White House and that given regime. They've never actually, that could be applied to multiple different engagements that we've had.
Just so we can temper down the whole, you guys hate the lefties more. He's referring to Dick Cheney and Halliburton.
For the current,
I feel like we had to make that explicit.
Right. Let's
can't
not
expect people to read
We're
through the
not
lines.
just attacking the left, but now that the left is in office and pretending that they don't act the exact same way as the right, you're right. They're starting foreign wars and enacting in bad faith to the American population by telling them that we're doing infrastructure. Well, let's see a laid out plan of your infrastructure before we can actually vote on it. But did we see a laid out plan, or did they just say infrastructure and it might go to a fucking corporation that had ties to get somebody elected that is in the White House? You see where I'm going with this, Dane. The history repeats itself.
I see that you've been talking to me too long because now you're starting to absorb the worst characteristics about me.
How dare I?
The scene versus, again, listen, all of your historical examples are absolutely right. Absolutely. And so even if that's all you had was a general knowledge about things that most of you have actually lived through, you don't have to read a history book, you've lived through this.
You saw it.
That's a big assumption to say that everything that they promise is actually going to be fulfilled. But even if we grant it, even if we say we're going to stipulate to the fact that everything they promise is going to happen, they're going to be perfect manager of the resources, no corruption, no waste, no fraud, no abuse, blah, blah, blah. Even if we assume all of that, you are still going to have to assume that Elon Musk knows how to allocate $1 billion more efficiently, more effectively in a way that helps more people's lives than Bernie Sanders.
And by the way, we don't even have to look back years. We have to look back months to how they allocated the bailout plan checks.
Well, again,
We
somebody
lost $26 billion. Poof. Like it was a fucking magic trick. Number 3, by the way.
again, David, I've granted you all of those things.
But that was back, what was it? 10 year, 12? Oh, shit. When was Bush president again?
I know.
I said it happened within the fiscal year.
Yes, I agree with you.
Sure.
What I'm saying is we don't have to go there.
Okay. Let's not.
Even
then.
if they're perfect angels,
Let's
you
not
still have to believe that every dollar that Bernie Sanders has versus what Elon Musk has, how is that dollar going to be better, more efficiently spent?
Sure.
Bernie has been in power for how long? He's held the cleaver of the federal government over the economy for how long?
Fuck Bernie.
And he couldn't
Pelosi.
He couldn't just
Schumer.
just wish
Insert any left
an
name.
electronic vehicle company into existence like Tesla did, like Elon Musk did, again, in the private economy. Now, again, I want to caveat that with, yes, I know that Elon has got a lot of government subsidies, but in the aggregate, is Elon more of a representative of the free market versus Bernie representative of the government? Who's going to spend money better, more efficiently?
Well, Elon just landed a rocket and returned it back to the same spot that he landed on. I've never seen NASA do that, and NASA's been around since the 50s. So let's keep going. Ready for the next topic?
All right, topic number 2.
I don't
Did
want
you
to
button that one?
I don't want to cut. I don't want to color in the lines for them. Let them make their own conclusions. I'm just saying.
Next one, the Georgia voter ID laws. Now, I think here on Weapons of Mean Destruction, if there's one thing that you've gotten used to about us, it's that our take is probably not going to be what you're hearing in a lot of other places. Would you agree with that?
I would certainly hope so, because I don't want to be just another pretty face in the crowd.
Exactly. So if you have been paying,
I want to be the streaker in the Super Bowl. I want you to not want to see me, but watch me intently.
I think that's an apt analogy.
That's a fair what we're going after here.
Yeah. We're not Tom Brady, we're the streaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. All right. So here's the deal. If you paid even a modicum of attention to this Georgia voter ID thing, all of the talking points are pretty canned from both sides. You have one side saying, oh, this is the worst voter disenfranchisement thing in all of human history, and it's going directly after, Democrat voters and blah, blah, blah. That's one side of the talking point. And the other side is, no. If you're going to vote, you need to have an ID, and we're just going to make sure that you have an ID, and we're going to limit mail-in voting and all that kind of stuff. We're going to take fraud out of the system, right?
Dane.
That's your general talking points.
Dane.
Now here's the weapons of immune destruction.
Dane, you want to be candid? You want to be real, son? You want to get down to the real?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. I would argue, and I'm being generous, by the way, 80% of the American population in and of itself shouldn't be allowed to vote. Can we say that?
I'm going much higher than that.
Wow.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to put it on par with, I believe the last statistic I saw is about 95% of the American of the American citizens are educated in public schools.
Sure.
So I'm going to say 95% of people should not be able to vote.
Why would you say that, Dane? What credentials would you say that they shouldn't be allowed to vote on? Go.
So here's the thing. We've lifted, and again, maybe Republicans and Democrats, the right and the left would agree on this thing that, voting is a sacred institution. It's one of the things that makes us America.
It's why we fought a war. That's why we fought. That's why we have the Constitution. Blah, blah, blah.
Everything that's ever happened has been for your right to vote, or conversely, not vote if somebody wants to take it away from you. And I'm just saying, listen, I know you guys have seen the same Jimmy Kimmel skits I have, where he goes and interviews people, college students on the beach, and asks them to name the 3 branches of government, and they can't do it. Right?
Granted, they might be camera shy. They might be a little shell-shocked. Fair. However,
the point I'm trying to make is in everything that we do on this podcast, and what I would encourage people to do in the real world, is you have to separate when you hear a plan or a vision or a world event. You have to ask yourself, okay, is what I'm hearing the way the people want the world to be, Like, would the world be better if it was like X? Or are they telling me the world as it is? So to say that 95% of people shouldn't be voting anyway, it's the same reason you wouldn't take your car to a mechanic when their degree on the wall says cosmetician.
Well, I'd argue...
Or underwater basket weaver. You want a mechanic working on your car, right?
You want an actually educated population. You want somebody that isn't just listening to what they want to hear. They're listening to what they don't want to hear from people they don't want to hear it. And guess what? Sometimes the people they don't want to hear it from say some things that actually make sense. And guess what? You have to be able to pull yourself out of your tribalism to hear the other side. That's the problem with where we're at today, which is why this whole podcast has spawned. Like, you have to be able to critically think and say, am I hearing what I want to hear, or am I hearing truth? That takes you.
I agree with that. And that
takes work.
And that is going to take more of a dangerous route, right? As you create you already have a warlike culture. You've told everybody in society to like look up to, the warlike aspect of, the American empire.
And then
in the middle of that fire, you're going to throw the gas of, if this side wins, they're going to enforce their worldview on you. And if your side wins, you're going to get to enforce it on them. And you're not going to expect people in that society to be at each other's throats. I mean, of course that's going to be the natural outcome.
If you've ever walked up to somebody and not asked them, but demanded them to put their mask above their nose, you're who we're talking to. Conversely, if you've ever walked into an establishment with a mask completely off your face, citing the constitutional rights that you have not to wear a mask,
felt like you needed to yell at the person who
with
just
a
works
camera
there,
on you, you're
the same
part
person.
of the fucking problem,
Yeah.
And you're just in different wrapping paper.
Yep. And just to tie up that the mechanic analogy I was making is just like you wouldn't want somebody who's not trained to work on cars work on your car. A voter goes into a booth and says, I'm going to pull the lever for person A or person B. Both people have a whole range of policies. Maybe the only thing I care about is education. And so I vote for the person who has the best education policy in my mind. I don't know everything about their foreign policy, their economic policy, and everything else in between. I'm only focused on my one narrow thing. That's like a mechanic saying, listen, I only change mufflers, but you want me to do everything else on the front end of the car. It makes, you wouldn't do that. So why would we just assume that everybody should be voting on complex issues with politicians that hold internally conflicting views? Even if people wanted to be fully educated on who they vote for, they couldn't. They don't have the time for it because people have to go to work and make a living.
That's the point now, isn't it?
So,
and then they also have to pay that new tax to drive to work too, that we discussed in the pre-roll.
Yeah, and to tie up the 95% thing, again, look who educates most of the people. Does that institution have an incentive to have the people believe that everything
they want you to be educated
and
and call them out on their bullshit? Or would they want you to just say, yes, that's my team, that's what they said, I'm going with that?
Exactly.
So, can we lighten this up? Can we get to a lighter topic, please?
We're almost to commercial time, and that's about as light as it gets. So get those gears
Oh, Jesus,
turning.
I have a commercial today? What can I... Okay.
The second thing I wanted to say about the voter ID is like, get off your moral high horse, right? Again, both sides treating voting as if it's like some sacrosanct institution. Let's get down to what voting really is. H.L. Mencken had a quote where he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that every election is just an advance auction on stolen goods. So back to the whole this side versus that side thing. You look at your political opponent, you think, man, if they win, they're going to give tax breaks to the rich and they're going to do everything that I think hurts this country. And they're looking at you saying, if that person gets elected, they're going to, spend a whole bunch of money and increase welfare and ruin this country. Both of you are saying the same thing, but you've created a political situation where you're just fighting over who gets to steal from who. That doesn't seem like a morally virtuous thing to be fighting that everybody should have the right to do. Because as long as the government's premised on theft, back to point one, every dollar that they had, they first had to take from you, the productive members of society, and impose their worldview on you. Doesn't sound like a fun, nice, happy-go-lucky system.
And for our first commercial break, let's speak about fun. Let's speak about having an adventure. Do you find your morning commute is just slightly dull, mindless, listening to the same chatter on podcasts from two dickweeds telling you what you should think? Well, here's an advertisement from Firestone Tires. Yeah, the politicians are trying to zhuzh up your goddamn drive to work with an additional tax, but guess what? We're going to kick it up to 11 because we got tires that'll explode on a spontaneous, I don't even give a shit. You could be driving down 20th Street at 20 miles per hour. See how I did 2020? Hindsight's always that. Anyway, it'll explode on command. You don't want a little more excitement? Buy the Firestone tire that explodes. We don't know what's going to happen. You could be going 95 down 95 and all of a sudden it explodes. Then all of a sudden all you see is concrete. Guess what? You might be returning home tonight. Call your wife and kids, tell them, buy Firestone. Firestone, where the rubber meets the road, then explodes.
I feel like we have to put a disclaimer in at the end of that. We are sorry, Firestone.
Pull out your earbuds.
We are totally going to get sued for defamation and everything else.
Trademark.
David is very, very sorry for all of that.
Sincerely.
Well, since you've put this back on the happy rails, should we end on a happy note?
Let's end on let's put a cherry on top of this episode.
You know, David. You know what really warms the cockles of my heart?
Subcockle.
Maybe in the subcockle area.
Maybe below the subcockle. Maybe in the liver. Maybe even the kidney.
Yep, that one. Just warms my heart to know that every single one of my medical decisions, and well, maybe not every single one, but yeah, my medical decisions are that the government knows all about them. It lets me know that somebody cares.
You know who I trust
me.
with my heart safety? The Surgeon General. That allows Frito-Lay to pump more and more salty, fat-laden, fried garbage down my throat.
You got that warning label on those cigarettes, but not Cheetos.
For God's sake, don't go outside during COVID, but keep pounding those Cheetos and Frito-Lay products and Coca-Cola and all the good stuff that clogs your arteries and leads to an earlier death. We don't want you to die of an unexpected death. We want you to die of a predictable death. Frito-Lays. That's our second advertisement of the day.
We were in the middle of it and didn't even know it until we finished.
Exactly. That's how we creep up on you. Weapons of destruction advertisements.
So yeah, you probably gathered we're not big fans of this whole vaccine passport coming through.
Oh,
you didn't gather that.
They didn't even see it coming. They didn't see the passport. But they saw it coming from a mile away.
And here's the point. Or here's one of the major problems is there's all kinds of talk that the Biden administration is going to work, close side by side diligently with, big tech to kind of implement this whole system. And I got to give credit to this analogy because he said it. Dave Smith has called it a national caste system. Like that's what it is. It is singling out a group of people because of a decision that they made about their body, their choice. Remember that? That used to matter once upon a time. That they don't want to get a vaccine, and so now they are second-class citizens. They can't go to the concerts. They can't go to the sporting events. They can't go to a funeral that has, too many people.
But Dane, all you have to do is be good little boys and girls.
And if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
And get your shot. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we can go back to how life was.
Yeah.
It's just so serendipitous. How dare you think about what you put inside your body, even though we tell you what you can and can't put inside your body nearly constantly with our drug laws and our FDA and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And
how dare you decide for yourself?
And I do want to put this out there. Like, I don't have strong feelings one way or another about the vaccine in general. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't get it, and I'm not saying you should. I don't know. They rushed it through pretty quick. Did they cut some corners? I don't know. I have no proof of that. It's possible. Do I know that the companies went to the government and said, hey, can we get some exemption from liability if people get hurt? Like, I know that happened. Do I think that automatically means the vaccine's bad? No. But the point is that if you make the decision that is bad and that is more risk than you're willing to take, well, you just don't get to go back to normal, citizen.
Well, what I will say is this: it's all coming from the same side, so to speak. It's all coming from the side that said we follow the science, even though clearly they've never looked in a science book once, and if they had, they said that science is a continual subject that even in theory, even if we practice it and test it with hypotheses and experiments and so on and so forth, even if every time it's come out 100% true, it's not called a law, it's still called theory. And it takes years and years and years to even to make it to theory. So this has existed for a year. So you're telling me that the science, quote unquote, is science? You're bullshitting me right now.
Or I'm going to David you and too long didn't read it. The whole point of science is constant questioning.
Correct. Exactly.
Dissent is the very whoop and wharf of science.
You're not supposed to accept anything until you can't disprove it. And until you've exhausted everything that has happened and could possibly happen off of the things that could possibly happen, you can't call it a law. So it's infinite. Science takes years and years and years to even get to theory and practicum. Therefore, we've had this coronavirus for a year. So all the people that are touting the science haven't even had numbers. They don't even have factual numbers because we don't even know how to collect the numbers on the numbers that were collected at the beforehand. So you could have been attacked by a shark and then you tested positive for COVID with your fucking torso and then all of a sudden you died of COVID.
David, are you upset? Did you have more gears to grind from the pre-roll?
I don't know what you're talking about, Dan.
And what our opening salvo on this topic was, the government colluding with big tech. So here's two problems with that. First problem, right off the bat, surface level, aren't the lefties supposed to be the ones that are all like suspect of profits and motives for, greedy motives and all that kind of stuff?
Aren't they supposed to be the intellectuals? Aren't they supposed to be the ones that went to college and are higher educated and are versed in science?
Okay, but the piece I'm putting together here is...
Which is why they're so benevolent.
Get out of their analytical framework and whether they think the science justifies them and get onto their principles, what they allegedly stand on.
That's what I'm saying, though.
You can't trust the rich.
They're
you can't
intellectual, thusly they're moral, which is why everything that comes down from their side...
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're supposed to be the ones that are most suspicious of big corps. Well, I mean, tell me, if Biden is saying, I'm going to work with major corporations to kind of put the economic pressure on people and to set up the system to track them. But on top of that, like, you don't think that the mandatory vaccination is helping big pharma?
Easy, Dane.
Do they have incentives to sell vaccines?
Easy, Dane. There's no mandatory vaccination. Okay? There's no, you have to get this so you can do this. Like, you don't have to get the vaccine.
Right, yet.
But we don't have to give you allowance of your funds to your account. We don't have to let you travel.
Yes.
We don't have to do
Whether
anything.
it's forced right now or not, here's the point. There's a lot of pressure put on by the government from the mouthpieces of, entrenched bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci.
The moral platitudes of the population.
They're going to push the fear, so the population demands it. And then the population is going to come out with stupid things and say, oh, this is voluntary. Private companies can do whatever they want. Yeah, no shit.
Well, Dane.
But when they are being prodded on by the government, when they're working with the government, when they're getting government contracts and or subsidies from the government to engage in this stuff, that line between public and private distinction is kind of blurry. It's blurry in the free speech context with social media, and it's blurry here now.
Dane.
That's intentional. Blur the line, and you destroy the debate.
I'm having a problem with one subject. Mm-hmm. Like, this vaccine is supposed to be the finish line, right? This is supposed to be what we have to do to get back to what it was before the COVID, right?
If I'm running through my timeline, I believe it went 15 days to flatten the curve, 6 feet of social distancing, no public gatherings without a mask, and then, yes, vaccine. I believe vaccine was the finish line. Correct. Once we got there, we've established
a moniker of moving of goalposts. And you know what's already happening now? People are worried that the vaccine won't cover for the third molecular change in COVID.
Well, they're worried about that, but in terms of moving the goalpost for the point I was making is, yeah, it's quote unquote voluntary now. Yeah, there's no forced vaccination now, but again, if the goalposts keep moving, once they have the system set up, why wouldn't they tie whether or not you can be a human being as to whether or not you have your passport?
All I'll ask is that I'm not going to equate coronavirus to influenza. I'm not going to equate coronavirus to pneumonia. However, the numbers are staggeringly similar to what we heard at the very beginning of this pandemic. And I never heard a global mandate or a global movement to have you get a flu shot and put it on your passport. I've never heard that ever. Why is it now that it is mandated to get a shot that proves that you can't get this particular virus that is very similar in every aspect, not so much all aspects, but in a majority of aspects to the flu? Why does that have to be on my passport for me to travel? Period. That's the only, if you have to ask that question, to ask the question is to ask the question of everything. What is this for?
Right. And in terms of what it's for, I mean, again, read through the lines of their own rhetoric. There are literally articles that refer to going to things as benign as concerts and sporting events as quote unquote privileges. Those are privileges that you get back if you have your vaccine passport. Not things that you just have because you live in the alleged land of the free, but those are privileges that the government grants you.
You just said it though. In the land of the free, if you're truly free, how many privileges do you have?
Pretty much all of them, as long as your privileges don't hurt somebody else.
On the first time in this whole podcast, I will call you out.
Forever?
It's, 37 episodes in.
Getting good.
And I'm going to call you out for being wrong for the first time on the cast. When you're free, you don't have privileges. You can do what you want because you're free. Your freedom exists until you infringe upon somebody else's freedom. You don't have privileges. There's no such thing as a privilege. you get to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
That's freedom.
In the land of the free. Where do we where do we seem to be trending? We leave you, dear listener. But there was one bit of a social event that happened this week that we thought was worth commenting on.
Please.
And the Libertarian Party of Kentucky has a Twitter handle. And this
is already shaky ground.
Libertarians
Kentucky,
are mentioned.
Yeah.
Kentucky Libertarians on top of it. Yikes. So anyway, so they put out a tweet, something, and I'm paraphrasing. They're like, so, what are the vaccine passports going to look like? Are they going to be yellow stars sewn on our jackets? The analogy is pretty clear there.
Ooh.
And, I got to agree with Tom Woods on this point. And the point that he made was he doesn't particularly like using Hitler or Holocaust analogies.
Dane, what do we call that? Manichaeanism?
Well, yes, that's one expression of it. But the point he's trying to make is more of a strategic, tactical one of like, if you have to resort to that to make your point, like right out of the gate.
Your point is flawed.
Excuse me. No, it's not flawed. It's just intellectually lazy. It's easy to just throw out Hitler or the Holocaust.
Intellectually lazy is flawed.
But that doesn't mean the argument's wrong. Will you just let me give the man his due?
Fine.
Okay, so I agree with him that yes, my first resort is not to jump straight into the Nazis or the Holocaust. But the point that is being made there is
not to use golden stars.
Right.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Man, like,
I'm sorry.
You can't jump out of the bushes on me like that, because then I say right, and it sounds like I agree with you. And because I was
gold stars are evil, we need to ban them for the lexicon of the Webster's dictionary.
Is not necessarily that's the tactic that you should always use, but it's just interesting how we've all lived through the last 4 years, right? Were you here? I was here. I think I was here.
Was I?
Were you here for the last 4 years?
I know it seems like you were, but were you?
Like, we were awash in Hitler and Holocaust analogies 24/7.
You couldn't open up a CNN article. You couldn't open up a New York Times. It was inundated. He's fans of other dictators. He wants to be a dictator himself. He wants to have a dictator's parade with all of our armory enforcements down Pennsylvania Avenue. It's like, damn. Okay. He must be a dictator.
He must be a really bad guy.
What a piece of poop.
Regardless of whether those were valid points or not, it's the same people who were doing that for 4 years are now outraged at an affiliate account in a state of a third party that the big two won't even they're so afraid of them, they won't even let them on the debate stage. And they make a tweet and they're outraged about that. And to finish up the credit to Tom, is what Tom had to say about this is, it's the lesson to take away here is you can do things as long as they're in furtherance of the regime. But if they're against the regime, then it's terrible. If you say that Trump is literally Hitler, but you're supporting the security apparatus and the deep state, as it were, you can use all the Hitler and Holocaust analogies you want. But if you say one bad thing tying what the regime wants to do in terms of vaccine passports to something related to the Holocaust, and let's be honest, the star wasn't the Holocaust. The star was the lead up to the Holocaust. They first put the star on them to start tracking them and identifying them, and then it was the next year or two later.
And how did they identify
the exterminations actually started?
As we discussed in previous episodes, it didn't take much. It took their neighbors to go.
They dehumanized them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They dehumanized them to the members of the party, right?
Yeah.
So now, how many times have you heard, and we'll try to button this as quickly as possible, but how many times have you heard from a Republican or a Democrat that they simply can't talk to the other side because their viewpoints are so contrived?
They're living in two different worlds. in terms of what they think the reality is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and you know how you break down a country? You separate it.
Yeah. Of course.
That's Cold War shit. That's CIA stuff. Like, if I can't talk to my neighbor because he has a Trump sign in his goddamn front yard, that's when you know you've lost. You should be able to go out there, wave, "Hi, neighbor. I'll report if someone's breaking into your house, just as I expect you to report to the cops that someone's breaking into my house. We have each other's back. We have different viewpoints. That's fine. We're still Americans."
I mean, listen, David, I'm gonna pull up two celebrities. I'm gonna go after you, boy. We've already talked this. I'm doing it.
Don't you do it.
But our episode, I'm gonna start with the good example first. Our episode 31 on the Gina Carano thing, like, this is exactly what it was. She used a Hitler/Holocaust reference to make a point about cancel culture. And again, that's against the regime. That's against the Cathedral, which we define all the time on here. That's against the Cathedral, the, DC, Hollywood, corporate media, they're all speaking from the same script. That's the Cathedral. And she made a point against them, and they went after her. Right after the Capitol riots, your boy Schwarzenegger comes on and starts comparing that to Crystal Knocked.
Don't you attack the governor, all right?
Well,
you come proper.
Listen.
If you're gonna.
Point is,
if you're coming,
I'm not going to tell you what I think about that.
Better come correct.
But what I am going to tell you is that he made a Holocaust Nazi reference in furtherance of the regime.
I understand that.
She made it against. Look at how they're both received.
I understand that. And both of them.
Now go defend your boy as if he needs it.
I mean, clearly.
Arnold Levy, though, would still love to have you on the show. We want to talk about Pumping Iron.
Can I just touch your chest for a second? Maybe absorb some of the power.
Listen, anyway, if you pay the man enough, I'm sure.
I want to talk to him. Like, I want to. He's my boy. He's the reason why I am. Anywho,
he's your father.
Well, not so to speak. Anywho, I wish. But if only my mother was a maid, a Mexican maid.
David,
anywho,
Jesus.
if I could skip to it.
I would like that very much.
I almost forgot my point, but I'm going to bring it back to it, and here it is that despite where you fall on the fence, it's really important to understand where the other side is. In every legal argument, as you would know, you have to understand where the other side is coming from. You have to understand the other side's arguments. If you do not, you are setting yourself up for failure. And when you understand the other side's arguments, guess what? You understand their point of view, so you don't hate them for it anymore. You don't hate them for having the point of view. You just understand that it's different from yours. Like, you're both trying to get to the same point. Both liberals and conservatives want the best for this country. And they think their ideals are the best for this country. But guess what? What's lost in the meandering and what's lost in all this confluence is that we both want the best for this country. So start talking to the Trump lawn poster, whatever the hell he is. Start talking to the Biden poster lawn, whatever the hell he is. Start talking to Americans, please, because this is how it starts. This is how Rome fell. This is how regimes fall, is because of differences between people that have the same motive but are saying it differently.
David, can I leave you with a Confucian saying?
Please. Please.
Man with fly on ball realizes that violence is not always the answer.
Man with hand in pocket feel cocky.
See, now you're throwing in a different one. You're throwing off the whole the learning lesson of mine.
We were both referencing balls and Confucius.
What I'm trying to make is pro-vaccine people, pro-COVID vaccine in particular, because I don't want to get into this whole anti-vaxxer thing. We're not saying that. If you're in favor of the vaccine, you think it's a great thing to quote unquote get us back to normal. State your case without resorting to force on people who don't want to do it voluntarily. And don't delude yourself and say, oh, it's voluntary because it's private company and da-da-da-da. You didn't want a guy to stay in business because he wouldn't bake a cake for a couple. And now you're trying to give me this whole, companies can do it, private companies can do what they want.
You didn't want a guy to have a Oval Office because he didn't say the things that you wanted him to say. Period.
Use your powers of persuasion, not your powers of force. So, David, we have things to tell the people about making this thing profitable. Can you tell us how they can help us out?
Bring up the cue card. Can I read off the cue card? What are we telling the people? What are we saying?
All right, I'll start.
Good idea.
So we have a couple different ways.
Jerry's a slacker.
We have a couple different ways for you to support the podcast. One is we have an Amazon affiliate link on our website on the support our work tab.
Is that working, by the way? Because I ordered a book that was really important the other day. Is called the Kama.
So anyway, you can either
Sutra
go to that ad directly on, with the books that we have offered there, or you can type into that bar, which then takes you to Amazon, and anything you buy, doesn't have to be what we're selling, anything you buy, we will get a percentage of. And that's how you can help the podcast for free to you. David, what's another way they can help the podcast? That's maybe not so free to them.
Not so free to them.
Yeah,
I was gonna mention the free stuff before we started.
We're done with the free stuff. That's it. That's all I got. Damn it.
You could order. You could get on the email list, and that's free. And all they have to do is subjugate your rants online.
We definitely support that. But that's not supporting the.
Do we have t-shirts
financially?
Do we have t-shirts?
No, we don't. I would really appreciate it if you would go to the website every once in a while and figure out what we have.
I'm on the website. I don't need to go there.
Okay,
I'm
famous. I'm going to do David's part for him.
Well, he didn't tell me, by the way.
The example that's
so that we have it all on the table.
You can help us in a not so free way to you by getting a monthly membership. You'll see all the tiers we have there, but you do get extra content from us.
Go to Dank. Just straight to Dank tier.
Read through those and, see if you would like to support the podcast with a monthly donation. And yes, David alluded to it. We don't have it done yet. We will have merch not too long on that same tab, on the support our work tab.
You throw me curveballs. I don't do well with 6
and that
12.
Won't be free to you either, but
I don't
do well
with 12 to 6. But I'll tell you what, you throw me a slider when I'm gonna sit on it.
We're done with the baseball analogies. Point is, you can now support the show. Please come to the website and do it. David, I think that's it.
Is it though?
You didn't do any of your part that you were going to do, but
the part that you told me to do when you didn't tell me.
We haven't done an hour episode in like 2 months, and now look at us. We're terrible.
Well, we tried our hand at 3 topics, and it failed miserably.
All right. We have to trim her down next week, and anything we trim is on that email list. So
you're goddamn right, you deplorable degenerate for trying to make money. How dare you?
All right. Well, with that being said, we're signing off. Over and out.
Out.